Without self-confidence, life moves like a small wooden boat drifting across a wide African river. Carried wherever the current decides, without direction and without control. Intelligence alone cannot guide such a boat. Strength, courage, and belief are the oars that give life purpose. Many people live quietly, hidden behind fear, never daring to speak, never daring to try, and never daring to believe in themselves. This is the story of one such life, a life that almost disappeared into the river of despair, but instead rose to inspire many. In the crowded coastal city of Mombasa, where the air carried the smell of salt and the cries of merchants echoed through narrow streets, lived a hard-working man named Kwame Adeyemi. Kwame was known across the markets for his honesty and dedication. Every morning before sunrise, he carried heavy sacks of salt on his cart, selling them to shopkeepers and households to support his small family. Life was not easy, but Kwame believed in dignity through labor. Kwame lived in a modest home with his wife Amanjeri, a gentlewoman with a calm spirit, and their 2 sons. The elder son was named Kofi Adeyemi, and the younger was Tunde Adeyemi. From childhood, the 2 boys were as different as the sun and the moon. Tunde, the younger one, was lively and fearless. He laughed loudly, asked questions without hesitation, and spoke freely with strangers. People in the neighborhood admired his confidence and often said, "This boy will go far in life." Kofi, however, lived in silence. He spoke softly, avoided eye contact, and often kept his thoughts to himself. When spoken to, he responded with short answers or nervous smiles. Crowded places made his heart race, and even familiar faces made him uncomfortable. Though his eyes were thoughtful and intelligent, few people noticed. Silence, in the eyes of the world, was mistaken for weakness. Children in the streets mocked him. Some shopkeepers tricked him into running errands without pay. Others laughed behind his back, calling him foolish. Kofi endured everything quietly, never arguing, never defending himself. He believed that staying silent would protect him, but instead, it made him an easy target. Kwame, his father, could not understand him. "Why are you like this?" Kwame would shout after a long day of work. "Why can't you speak like other boys? Why do you behave as if you are afraid of the world?" Emma often tried to defend her son. "He has a kind heart," she would say gently. "Not every child is loud." But Kwame saw only disappointment. In his eyes, a man needed strength, courage, and presence. Kofi's silence felt like failure. Each harsh word from his father struck Kofi's heart like a stone, slowly breaking his confidence piece by piece. As Kofi grew older, his struggles followed him into school. He understood his lessons well, but during exams, fear took control. His hands trembled, his mind froze, and words refused to come. Teachers misunderstood his silence as laziness. His grades dropped, and whispers spread. "He's not very bright," people said. Kofi heard every word. By the time he became a young man, his self-belief was almost gone. When Kwame asked him to help in the salt business, Kofi agreed, not because he felt capable, but because he feared disappointing his father again. Every day at the shop, his heart pounded. He struggled to speak with customers, stumbled over prices, and apologized excessively. Mistakes followed him like a shadow. Kwame's anger grew stronger. "You are ruining everything!" he shouted one afternoon. "Stand properly! Speak properly! Are you a child or a man?" Kofi lowered his head, swallowing his shame. One fateful day, when Kwame had gone to deliver salt to another district, a group of well-dressed men entered the shop. Their voices were confident, their words smooth. "Your father sent us," one of them said. "The city council needs all the salt immediately." Kofi hesitated. Something felt wrong, but fear silenced his doubt. He did not question them. He did not ask for proof. He only nodded and helped them load every sack onto their cart. Within minutes, they were gone. That evening, when Kwame returned and found the shop empty, his face darkened with rage. "You useless boy," he screamed. "You've destroyed everything I worked for. Get out of my house! Never come back!" The words cut deeper than any blade. Neighbors gathered. Whispers spread. Shame burned Kofi's chest. Without a word, he walked away, his heart shattered beyond repair. Tears blurred his vision as he reached the riverbank outside the city, the same river that had carried salt boats for generations. There is no place for me in this world, he thought. I was born to fail. As he stepped closer to the water, a firm hand grabbed his arm. Not today, my son, a calm voice said. Kofi turned to see an elderly man with wise eyes and a weathered face. His name was Mzee Jabari, a man known in the area for his wisdom and kindness. And in that moment, the course of Kofi's life began to change. The river beside the city flowed steadily, its surface reflecting the fading colors of the evening sky. For generations, it had been a witness to joy and sorrow, carrying fishermen's boats by dawn and washing away tears by night. On that riverbank stood Kofi Adeyemi, trembling, his heart heavy with shame and despair, his feet inches away from a choice that would have ended everything. The grip on his arm was firm but gentle. When Kofi turned around, he saw the old man more clearly. Mzee Jabari was tall despite his age, his back straight, his hair silver like river foam. His eyes held a depth that suggested he had seen many lives rise and fall. "Leave me," Kofi said bitterly, trying to pull his arm away. "You don't know me. You don't know how useless I am." Mzee Jabari did not loosen his grip. Instead, he guided Kofi to sit on a flat stone near the water. "I may not know your name," he said calmly, "but I know pain when I see it, and I know that a man standing on a riverbank with death in his eyes is not useless. He is wounded." Kofi laughed weakly. "Wounded? My own father threw me out like trash. I lost everything. I have no courage, no intelligence, no future." The old man sat beside him, looking at the river. "When a boat hits a rock, does it mean the river hates it?" he asked. "Or does it mean the boat needs repair?" Kofi said nothing. "My son," Mzee Jabari continued, "life is given once. It is not returned, replaced, or repeated. If you walk into that river, you will never discover what you could have become." Anger burst from Kofi's chest. "Become what? A joke? A failure everyone laughs at? Even children are braver than me." Mzee Jabari finally released his arm and stood up. "Come with me," he said simply. "Where?" Kofi asked. "To a place where questions are answered by action." Confused and exhausted, Kofi followed the old man through quiet streets until they reached a small, mud-brick house at the edge of the city. It was modest, but clean, surrounded by mango trees. Inside, the air smelled of herbs and warm tea. Mzee Jabari poured 2 cups and handed one to Kofi. "Drink," he said, "then listen." As Kofi drank, warmth spread through his body. The old man sat across from him and spoke slowly. "I was once like you, afraid, uncertain, silent. I lost my family, my wealth, and my pride. But I learned something the world never teaches loudly." "What is that?" Kofi asked. "That fear is louder than truth," Mzee Jabari replied. "And until you face it, it will rule you." Kofi lowered his eyes. "I don't know how." The old man smiled slightly. "That is why you will stay here for 3 days. You will complete 3 tasks. If you complete them honestly, your life will never be the same." Hope flickered faintly in Kofi's chest. "And if I fail?" "Then at least you will fail standing, not drowning," Mzee Jabari said. That night, Kofi slept deeply for the first time in years. At sunrise, Mzee Jabari woke him and said, "Today is your first test." They walked into the city where the streets were already alive. "Today," the old man said, "you will speak to 10 strangers. Ask about their lives. Listen, write what you learn." Kofi's heart raced. His hands trembled as he approached the first person, a fisherman repairing his net. His voice shook, but he spoke. The fisherman answered kindly. The second man ignored him. The third laughed. Still, Kofi continued. By sunset, he had spoken to 10 people. He had heard stories of struggle, hope, and loss. He realized something surprising. Many confident faces hid deep fears. That night, Mzee Jabari nodded. "You survived fear today." On the second day, the task felt impossible. "Teach 10 children about the importance of water," the old man instructed. "I can't," Kofi protested. "I am not educated." "You are alive," Mzee Jabari replied. "That is enough." With shaking legs, Kofi stood before the children holding a glass of water. He spoke of thirst, of strength, of life. His voice grew steadier. The children listened. Some smiled, some clapped. Something changed inside him. On the third day, the hardest task arrived. "You must return to your father," Mzee Jabari said. "Apologize, speak honestly." Fear gripped Kofi's chest, but he remembered the river, the tea, the tasks. He walked home. Kwame stared at him silently as Kofi bowed his head. "Father," he said, voice steady, "I failed you, but I will not fail again." For the first time, Kwame saw strength, not loudness, in his son's eyes. And that moment planted a seed that would grow for years to come. The silence inside Kwame Adeyemi's house felt heavier than anger. Kofi stood with his head lowered, his heart pounding, waiting for words that might send him away again. His father's face was stern, lined with years of hardship and disappointment, yet something new flickered in his eyes. Curiosity. "You left without a word," Kwame finally said. "I thought I had lost you forever." Kofi swallowed hard. "I thought I had lost myself," he replied softly. "But I want to change. I don't want fear to control me anymore." Kwame said nothing for a long moment. Then he turned away and walked toward the back room. Kofi feared he had failed again. But when his father returned, he held out a small cloth bag. "Tomorrow," Kwame said, "you will come with me to the market, not to sell, to observe, watch how I speak, watch how I deal with people." Kofi's eyes widened. "You're giving me another chance?" Kwame nodded once. "Do not waste it." That night, Kofi felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest, hope. The next morning, the market buzzed with life. Merchants shouted prices, carts rolled over dusty paths, and customers bargained loudly. Kofi followed his father closely, observing every word, every gesture. He noticed how confidence did not come from shouting, but from clarity and calm. Over the following weeks, Kofi returned daily. At first, he only watched. Then his father allowed him to weigh salt, then to accept payment, and finally, to speak. His voice trembled at first, but he remembered Mzee Jabari's words and kept going. Each small success strengthened him. Meanwhile, Tunde, his younger brother, noticed the change. "You're different," he said one evening. "You stand taller." Kofi smiled. "I'm learning." But growth is never without tests. One afternoon, a powerful trader named Bako Mensah approached the stall. Known for exploiting the weak, Bako smirked when he saw Kofi. "Let the boy handle the sale," he said mockingly. Kwame hesitated, then nodded. Kofi's hands shook, but he remembered to breathe. He stated the price clearly. Bako tried to intimidate him, but Kofi did not lower his gaze. For the first time, he said, "That price is fair." The crowd watched. Bako laughed, then paid. That night, Kwame placed a hand on Kofi's shoulder. "You did well today." Those words echoed in Kofi's heart for days. Still, doubt lingered. Confidence, he learned, was not a switch. It was a muscle that required daily effort. Some days he stumbled. Some days fear returned. But each time, he faced it. In one evening, Kofi visited Mzee Jabari to thank him. The old man listened quietly. "Remember," Mzee Jabari said, "confidence is not the absence of fear. It is action, despite fear." As months passed, Kofi began to study at night, reading borrowed books and practicing writing. His words grew stronger, his thoughts clearer. People in the market began to respect him, not because he was loud, but because he was reliable. The seed planted by the river had begun to grow. But just as roots grow deep, storms also come. A challenge loomed ahead, one that would test not only Kofi's confidence, but his integrity and courage in ways he could not yet imagine. Change often arrives quietly, like dawn breaking over the savannah. At first, the light is faint, almost unnoticeable. But slowly it reveals everything that was once hidden in darkness. For Kofi Adeyemi, that light was beginning to spread through his life, though he did not yet realize how much it would soon be tested. The salt business began to recover. Through patience, honesty, and long hours of work, Kwame Adeyemi rebuilt trust with his customers. Kofi worked beside him every day, arriving early and leaving late. He spoke with more confidence now, not loudly but clearly. People noticed. He is different from before, some said. The boy has grown, others whispered. Yet not everyone welcomed this change. Bako Mensah, the trader who had once mocked Kofi, watched closely from his larger stall across the market. Bako believed strength came from dominance and fear. Seeing a quiet young man earn respect disturbed him. In his mind, silence was weakness, and weakness should never rise. One afternoon, Bako approached Kofi privately. "You are doing well," he said smoothly. "Too well for someone like you." Kofi felt the familiar flicker of fear, but he held his ground. "If you need salt, the price is the same as everyone else." Bako smiled thinly. "I didn't come to buy, I came to offer opportunity." He leaned closer. "Water down your salt, add sand. People won't notice. We'll split the profit." Kofi's chest tightened. The offer promised quick money, enough to erase his father's losses completely. For a moment, doubt whispered in his ear. Then he remembered the river. He remembered Mzee eyes. "I won't do that," Kofi said firmly. Bako's smile vanished. "Think carefully, boy. People like you don't get many chances." Kofi shook his head. "I'd rather stay poor than lose my honor." Bako walked away in anger, but his threat lingered like smoke. That evening, Kofi told his father everything. Kwame listened, his face serious. "You did the right thing," he said at last. "We may struggle, but we will struggle honestly." The next weeks were difficult. Rumors spread. Some customers stopped coming. Someone falsely accused their shop of cheating. Kofi suspected Bako, but there was no proof. Old fear crept back into his thoughts. Maybe I should have accepted, he wondered late at night. One morning, a city inspector arrived unexpectedly. Kwame and Kofi exchanged nervous glances. The inspector tested their salt carefully. After a long silence, he nodded. "Pure," he said. "Some of the best in the market." Word spread quickly. Customers returned in greater numbers. Trust, once broken, had been rebuilt stronger than before. Bako's stall, however, was later shut down for fraud. That evening, Kwame looked at his son with pride. "A man's worth," he said, "is measured by what he refuses to do." Kofi felt something settle deeply within him, a confidence rooted not in approval, but in values. He returned once more to visit Mzee, who listened quietly as Kofi shared everything. "You have learned well," the old man said. "Integrity is the backbone of confidence. Without it, strength collapses." As Kofi walked home under the stars, he realized that fear no longer ruled him. It still existed, but it no longer decided his actions. Yet life had greater plans for him beyond the market, beyond salt and stalls. A new door was about to open, one that would take him far from everything familiar. When a man begins to change, his life often changes with him. What was once ordinary becomes full of new possibilities. For Kofi Adeyemi, the market had been his world, his prison, and his school. But now his confidence was growing like a young tree reaching toward the sun. One morning a visitor arrived at the market. His name was Mr. Odion Kalu, a businessman from the city's far side. He had traveled to Mombasa to buy salt in bulk for shipping to inland towns. He was known for being sharp, demanding, and fair, someone who did not waste time on fools. Kwame welcomed him, offering the best quality salt he had. Kofi stood quietly beside his father, observing the negotiation. The way Mr. Kalu spoke, the way he demanded clarity and precision, it was a world away from the small daily trade Kwame was used to. At one point, Mr. Kalu turned to Kofi and asked, "And what do you think about the quality?" Kofi froze for a moment, but then remembered the lessons of the last months. He took a deep breath and spoke clearly. "The salt is pure," he said. "It is tested. I guarantee it." Mr. Kalu's eyes narrowed, as if measuring the young man. Then he nodded. "Good, I like honesty." He continued to negotiate, and the deal was made. Mr. Kalu bought a large amount of salt, enough to change the family's future. After the deal, Mr. Kalu invited Kofi to his office. "You have potential," he said. "Your father has built something good, but you are limiting yourself. I want you to work with me." Kofi's heart pounded. "Work with you? But I am just a shop assistant." Mr. Kalu smiled. "A man who stands before a powerful trader and speaks honestly is not just an assistant. He is a businessman." Kofi's mind raced. He looked at his father, who was watching silently. Kwame nodded once, as if giving permission. That evening, Kofi sat with Amma and Tunde at home. "He wants me to work for him," Kofi said, still unsure. Amma smiled. "This is your chance." Tunde's eyes lit up. "Brother, you can do it." But Kofi felt the old fear return. What if I fail? What if I make a mistake? Amma placed a hand on his shoulder. "You already proved that you can learn. Fear will not disappear, but you can move forward anyway." The next morning, Kofi met Mr. Kalu at his office. It was a large room, with maps of trade routes and shipping schedules on the walls. The atmosphere was different from the market, more serious, more demanding. Mr. Kalu gave Kofi a task: to manage a shipment of salt and ensure it reached the inland town safely. It was a big responsibility for a young man who once struggled to speak. Kofi accepted. As the weeks passed, he learned about logistics, negotiation, and planning. He traveled to different towns, met new people, and faced new challenges. The more he learned, the more his confidence grew. He discovered that the world was not as frightening as he had imagined. It was simply unfamiliar. One day, while traveling through a town inland, Kofi met a young woman named Amina, a teacher at a local school. She was kind, intelligent, and strong. She noticed Kofi's quiet nature at first, but soon saw the depth in his eyes. They spoke often, and Amina encouraged him. "You have a calm strength," she said. "You don't need to shout to be heard." Kofi smiled. "You are the first person who said that to me." Amina's words became a source of courage for him. Back in Mombasa, Kwame watched his son's growth with pride. The man who once believed Kofi was weak now saw a new man emerging, one who could carry his family as future forward. However, Kofi still had one fear left, the fear of becoming too proud. He remembered the river and the old man's wisdom. He knew confidence was not meant to be used to hurt others. He decided to return to the riverbank where Mzee Jabari had saved him. He wanted to thank him properly. When he arrived, he found the old man sitting by the water, as if waiting. "Mzee Jabari," Kofi said, bowing respectfully. "You saved my life. You changed my future." Mzee Jabari looked at him with a smile. "You saved yourself, my son. I only showed you the path." Kofi sat beside him. "What is the final lesson?" The old man replied, "The final lesson is this: confidence is a responsibility. It is not for your own pride. It is for your purpose. When you are confident, you must lift others too." Kofi listened carefully, understanding the weight of those words. Little did he know, the next challenge would not test his business skills or his courage, but his compassion. The city of Mombasa was never quiet. Even at night, when the sun disappeared behind the ocean, the market streets remained alive with whispers, laughter, and the soft sounds of life continuing. The waves kept their steady rhythm, and the salt wind carried stories of people who worked hard to survive. Kofi had become a respected young man. People knew him as the son of Kwame Adeyemi, the salt trader, and as a trustworthy young man with a calm voice and strong character. But now, his life was no longer limited to the market. He was traveling, learning, and growing. One evening, after returning from a long trip, Kofi walked through the streets of the city. He noticed a crowd gathered near the market's entrance. A young boy was standing at the center, crying, his clothes torn and dirty. A woman was screaming at him, pointing a finger, her face full of anger. "Thief!" she shouted. "He stole my jewelry!" People around her shouted, "Catch him! Tie him up! Don't let him escape!" Kofi felt his heart tighten. The boy was not more than 12 years old, his eyes full of fear. He was trembling, and his hands were raised as if to surrender. Kofi approached the crowd. "What happened?" he asked calmly. The woman pointed at the boy. "He stole my gold earrings! I saw him take them." The crowd murmured. Some looked at the boy with hatred. Others watched silently, waiting for someone to act. Kofi looked at the boy. "Is this true?" he asked. The boy shook his head violently. "No! I didn't steal anything! I was just hungry! I didn't take your jewelry!" The woman shouted again. "Don't lie! I saw you!" Kofi turned to the crowd. "Listen," he said. "Before we judge, we must know the truth." A man in the crowd laughed. "And who are you to decide?" Kofi felt a flash of fear, but he didn't step back. He stepped forward. "I am someone who has been judged wrongly before. I know what it feels like." The crowd went silent. Kofi then asked the woman, "Did you see him with your own eyes?" "Yes," she said angrily. "Then tell me the truth," Kofi said softly. "Did you see him pick the earrings, or did you only see him near you?" The woman hesitated. Her face changed. She looked away. I saw him near me." Kofi looked at the boy again. "Where were you at the time?" The boy trembled. "I was near the stall. I was hungry. I saw the earrings and I touched them. I didn't steal them. I only wanted to hold them." Kofi turned to the crowd. "You see, we don't know the truth. We are quick to judge because we want to feel safe." The woman's face turned red. She was angry at being questioned. But Kofi continued. "Bring the boy to my shop," he said. "We will find the truth together." The woman reluctantly agreed. The boy followed Kofi with a frightened expression. When they reached Kofi's shop, he asked the boy to sit. He offered him water and food. "Why did you come near the earrings?" Kofi asked gently. The boy swallowed. "My mother is sick," he said. "We have no food. I didn't want to steal. I only wanted to hold them, to feel what a rich life feels like." Kofi's heart ached. "What is your name?" he asked. "Juma," the boy replied. Kofi looked at the woman and asked her, "Are you sure you saw him take them?" She hesitated again. "Maybe I was wrong." Kofi sighed. "If you were wrong, then we must not punish the innocent." He then asked the boy, "Do you know who took them?" Juma looked down. "I saw a man with a black cap. He was running away." Kofi immediately realized this was a bigger problem. A thief was in the market. People were afraid. He turned to the crowd and said, "We must not let fear make us cruel. I will find the real thief." The next day, Kofi went to the market early. He spoke with merchants, watched the crowds, and searched for clues. His confidence and courage guided him, but compassion guided his heart. After hours of searching, he noticed a man in a black cap acting suspiciously. The man moved quickly, avoiding people's eyes. Kofi followed him quietly. The man entered a small alley and hid behind a stall. Kofi approached slowly and called out, "Stop!" The man turned and tried to run, but Kofi grabbed him by the arm. "You are the thief!" Kofi said. The man tried to deny it, but Kofi had evidence. He found the stolen earrings in the man's bag. Kofi brought the thief to the market crowd and presented the evidence. The crowd cheered, and the woman finally realized her mistake. But Kofi did not stop there. He turned to the crowd and said, "Punish him if you must, but do not let fear make you cruel to innocent people." Then he turned to the boy Juma and said, "You are not a thief. You are a child who is hungry." Juma's eyes filled with tears. Kofi gave the boy food and asked him to come with him. He took Juma to the home of Amina, the teacher, and arranged for him to receive food and schooling. Amina agreed to help, and the boy's life began to change. That night, Kofi visited Mumzi Jabari again. "You passed the test," the old man said. "Compassion is the true sign of confidence." Kofi bowed his head. "I learned that fear makes people cruel. Confidence makes them just." Mumzi Jabari smiled. "Now you are ready for the next step. Your life will become greater, but you must stay humble." Kofi understood. His confidence was no longer just for himself. It was for the people who needed a voice, but the path ahead would not be easy. The city had many more lessons to teach. Life was beginning to feel like a new song for Kofi Adeyemi, one that rose gently with steady rhythm and hope. He had grown in confidence, in wisdom, and in compassion. The market respected him, his father trusted him, and even Amina, the teacher, had become a source of strength and encouragement. But the past does not always stay buried. Sometimes it returns like a storm that the sky hides behind a calm afternoon. Kofi's life had changed, yet his old fears still whispered in quiet moments. The memory of his father's harsh words, the shame of being called useless, and the painful moment at the riverbank, these memories still haunted him. One afternoon, as Kofi was preparing a shipment for Mr. Kalu, he received a letter. The paper was old and torn, and the handwriting looked familiar. He opened it with trembling hands. The letter was from Kwame's old friend, a man named Baba Musa, who lived in a village far inland. It contained a message that shook Kofi's heart. "Your father owes a debt. If it is not paid, he will lose the shop and the land." Kofi read the letter again, unable to believe it. His father had never mentioned any debt. The words felt like a heavy stone dropping into his chest. He showed the letter to Kwame immediately. Kwame's face changed. The anger and pride he had always carried were replaced by worry. "I did not tell you," he said quietly. "I did not want to burden you. But yes, I borrowed money many years ago, when I was struggling. I promised I would pay, but I couldn't. Now the lender wants the debt back." Kofi felt a sudden surge of anger. "Why didn't you tell me? We could have planned." Kwame sighed. "I was ashamed. I thought I could handle it alone." Kofi's mind raced. "How much is the debt?" Kwame hesitated. "A large amount, enough to destroy our shop." Kofi stood still, his heart heavy. The fear returned, not of people, but of failure. He remembered how easily he had been judged in the past. He did not want his family to fall again. That night, Kofi sat by the river alone, thinking. The river's steady flow reminded him of time, how it moves forward, regardless of pain. He thought of Mazi Jabari, of the lessons he had learned, and of the confidence he had built. The next morning, Kofi approached his father with a plan. "We will pay the debt," he said, "but not by hiding. We will face it." Kwame looked at him. "How?" Kofi took a deep breath. "I will go to Baba Musa. I will speak with him. I will explain everything. If he refuses, I will work harder. I will not run away." Kwame's eyes filled with tears. "You are not just my son anymore. You are my strength." Kofi traveled to the village where Baba Musa lived. It was a long journey, full of dusty roads and hot sun. But Kofi walked with determination. When he reached the village, he found Baba Musa sitting under a tree, surrounded by villagers. The man's eyes were sharp, and his expression cold. Baba Musa looked at Kofi and said, "You are the son of Kwame Adeyemi. Your father owes me money. He has not paid." Kofi nodded. "I know." Baba Musa laughed. "Do you think you can pay it? Your father is a simple trader." Kofi stood tall. "I may be simple, but I am honest. I will pay every penny. I only ask for time." Baba Musa's eyes narrowed. "Time is expensive," Kofi replied calmly. "I will work. I will not run. I will pay you with my own hands." Baba Musa studied him for a long moment. Then he said, "If you can prove your honesty, I will give you a chance. I want proof that you are serious." Kofi nodded. "What proof?" Baba Musa pointed to the village market. "Sell your salt here. If you can earn enough to pay the debt within 3 months, I will accept it." Kofi agreed. The next day, he returned to the market with a small amount of salt. The villagers laughed at him. "Who is this boy?" they asked. "He thinks he can pay a big debt with his small salt." But Kofi remembered the lessons of confidence. He remembered that fear was a liar. He began to sell his salt with honesty, with patience, and with respect. Some people bought from him, some ignored him, but slowly his business grew. Amina sent him food and support from the city, and Tunde sent him money he had saved. Kwame prayed for him every day. 3 months passed. Kofi had worked tirelessly. His hands were rough, his body tired, but his spirit was stronger. On the final day, he returned to Baba Musa with the money he had earned. Baba Musa counted it carefully. His expression did not change. When he finished, he looked up. "You have done it," he said quietly. "You have paid the debt." Kofi breathed deeply, relieved. "Thank you." Baba Musa's voice softened. "I tested you because I wanted to see if you were truly honest. Your father is a good man, but he needed someone to remind him that honesty is the only way." Kofi bowed. I will return to my father with your message." When Kofi returned home, he saw his father crying quietly. "I was ashamed," Kwame said. "I thought I was a failure." Kofi hugged him. "You are not a failure. You are human." That night, Kofi understood something important. Confidence is not only about speaking loudly or being strong. It is about facing the past with courage, even when it hurts. But even as Kofi returned home victorious, a new challenge waited. One that would test his leadership, his loyalty, and his faith in himself. The days after Kofi returned from the village were filled with relief, joy, and quiet celebration. The debt was paid. The family's future was safe. The market respected them once more. Life, it seemed, had finally settled into a peaceful rhythm. But peace is often a sign that the next test is approaching. One morning, as Kofi walked to the market, he noticed a large crowd gathered near the center. People were arguing loudly, their voices sharp with anger. Some merchants were pointing fingers at each other, others were trying to calm the crowd, but the noise kept rising. Kofi approached and asked, "What is happening?" A woman shouted, "The water in the city has been contaminated. People are getting sick." The crowd erupted into chaos. Kofi's heart sank. Water was the source of life. Without clean water, the city would suffer. He thought of the children he had taught about water, and he felt a sense of responsibility. He walked toward the group of elders standing near the fountain. They were discussing, but no one seemed to have a solution. Kofi cleared his throat. "Excuse me," he said calmly. "I have an idea." The elders turned to him, surprised. "Who are you?" one of them asked. "I am Kofi Adeyemi," he replied. "I work in the market, but I am also a son of this city. I have seen what happens when fear controls people. We must act with wisdom." The elders looked at each other. They had known Kofi since he was a child. Some had laughed at him, but now they saw something different. One elder, Elder Nuru, nodded. "What is your idea?" Kofi took a deep breath. "We need to test the water. We need to find the source of the contamination and stop it. We also need to organize volunteers to distribute clean water." The elders were silent. The problem seemed too big for one young man. Kofi continued. "If we stay here and shout, we will only spread fear. We need action." Elder Nuru studied him carefully. "Do you have any knowledge of water testing?" Kofi admitted. "Not much, but I can learn. I can ask the teachers and the healers." Elder Nuru looked at the crowd. "Who will help him?" No one moved. Kofi felt the old fear rise again, but he refused to let it win. He raised his voice. "If we don't act, our people will suffer. I will not stand aside." A few people began to step forward. The children, the women, the young men, some volunteered. Amina arrived and joined them immediately. Kofi and Amina worked together, organizing people into groups. One group would gather clean water from the river upstream, another would distribute it, and another would investigate the source of the contamination. As the day passed, Kofi's leadership began to show. He didn't command with arrogance, he spoke with calm authority. He listened to people's ideas and guided them with patience. By evening, they discovered the source of the contamination. A factory on the outskirts had been dumping waste into the river. The water supply had been poisoned. The city's leaders were furious. But Kofi knew that anger alone would not solve the problem. He approached the factory manager and asked for a meeting. The manager was surprised to see a young man leading the people. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am someone who cares about the lives of others," Kofi replied. "Your actions are hurting people. We will not allow this to continue." The manager tried to intimidate him, but Kofi remained calm. "We will involve the city council and the police if you do not stop immediately." The manager hesitated. The fear of consequences finally reached him. The next day, the factory stopped dumping waste. Clean water began to return. The city praised Kofi for his leadership. People began to see him not as a shy boy, but as a strong leader. But this new status brought new challenges. Some people began to envy him. They started spreading rumors that he was trying to take control of the market. Kofi heard these rumors and felt anger, but he remembered the lessons of Mzee Jabari. He chose to stay humble, He continued to work honestly, to help others, and to lead quietly. However, a new problem emerged, one that would test his trust and his faith in people. Life had changed for Kofi Adeyemi, and the city of Mombasa had started to see him in a new light. He was no longer the shy boy who once hid behind silence. He had become a young leader, a trustworthy businessman, and a voice for the people. But as the saying goes, the higher you rise, the harder the fall. A few weeks after the water crisis, Kofi noticed something troubling. A group of merchants, led by Bako Mensah, began to meet secretly. They were angry with Kofi's growing influence in the market. Bako had never forgiven Kofi for rejecting his offer and exposing his fraud. Now he saw an opportunity to destroy Kofi's reputation. One afternoon, Kofi received a message from Bako. It said, "Meet me at the old warehouse near the harbor. I have an important proposal." Kofi was cautious, but he believed in facing challenges head-on. He went to the warehouse, where he found Bako and several other merchants waiting. Bako smiled, pretending to be friendly. "Kofi, you have done well. The city respects you. But you need to understand how the market works. We can help you become stronger." Kofi felt the familiar fear of being trapped, but he remained calm. "What do you want?" Bako leaned closer. "We want you to join us. We want you to be part of our group. Together, we can control the market. We can make more money." Kofi's heart sank. He understood the hidden meaning. This was not a proposal, it was a trap. "I will not join you," Kofi said firmly. Bako's smile disappeared. "Then you will lose everything." Kofi stood his ground. "You cannot force me." Bako laughed. "You think you are powerful now. You are still just a boy. We can ruin you with a single lie." Kofi knew he was right. Bako was not just angry, he was dangerous. A week later, rumors began to spread in the market. People whispered that Kofi was stealing money, cheating customers, and using his influence to manipulate prices. Some customers stopped coming to his shop. Some merchants avoided him. Kofi felt the old fear return, but this time it was different. It was not about speaking or selling. It was about being betrayed. He went to his father, Kwame, and told him everything. Kwame looked deeply troubled. "We have faced many challenges," he said, "but we have never faced betrayal." Kofi bowed his head. "What should I do?" Kwame thought for a moment. "You must prove your innocence with evidence, and you must stay calm. Anger will only make them stronger." Kofi decided to confront the situation openly. He called a meeting in the market and invited everyone. When the crowd gathered, Kofi stood in front of them and spoke clearly. "I know there are rumors about me. I know people are angry. But I have never lied. I have never cheated. If anyone has proof, bring it. I will accept it and face the consequences." The crowd murmured. Some people believed him. Others were silent. Just then, a young merchant stepped forward. His name was Khalid, a boy who had once admired Kofi and learned from him. But now, Khalid looked nervous. "I have proof," Khalid said. Kofi's heart sank. He knew what was coming. Khalid opened a small bag and showed a handful of coins. "These are from the shop. I saw you take them." Kofi felt a shock. He had never taken money. He looked at Khalid's face and saw fear. "Khalid," Kofi said calmly, "are you sure?" Khalid hesitated. "Yes, I saw you." Kofi looked at the crowd. "Let us not judge based on fear. Let us check the shop records." He asked his father to bring the ledger. When the ledger was opened, it showed every transaction clearly. The coins in Khalid's hand did not match any entry. Kofi looked at Khalid again. "Where did you get those coins?" Khalid's face turned pale. He began to tremble. Finally, he confessed, "Bako gave them to me. He told me to lie. He said he would make me rich if I helped him ruin you." The crowd gasped. Some people turned to Bako, who was watching from the shadows. Bako stepped forward, furious. "You cannot prove anything!" he shouted. Kofi looked at him calmly. "The truth is already proven. Your lies have failed." The market erupted in anger. People began to shout at Bako. Some merchants wanted to punish him immediately. But Kofi raised his hand. "No," he said. "Violence will only make us like him." He turned to the crowd and said, "Let us handle this properly. We will report him to the city council. We will let justice be done." The council investigated Bako and found evidence of his previous fraud. Bako was banned from the market and forced to leave the city. Kofi's name was cleared. The truth was revealed, but the betrayal had left a scar. Kofi realized that not everyone would support him, even if he was honest. Some people would always choose greed over truth. That night, Kofi went to the river and sat alone. He remembered the old man who had saved him and taught him the value of confidence. He realized something important. Confidence is not only about believing in yourself, it is also about trusting the truth, even when others try to destroy it. And as he sat by the river, he prepared himself for the final test, the one that would determine the true purpose of his life. The river flowed as it always had, calm, steady, and endless. Yet for Kofi Adeyemi, the river now felt different. It was no longer a place of despair. It was a reminder of the moment when his life could have ended. It was also a symbol of how far he had come. Kofi had faced fear, shame, betrayal, and poverty. He had learned to stand up, speak, and lead. He had proven his honesty and earned respect. But now he knew there was one final lesson he needed to learn, a lesson that would complete his journey. One morning, Mzee Jabari visited Kofi at his shop. The old man's eyes were gentle, but there was seriousness in his expression. "Kofi," he said, "you have learned many things, but you still have one test." Kofi looked up. "What test?" Mzee Jabari sat down. "You have built confidence. You have earned respect. But do you know why you were saved that day at the river?" Kofi thought for a moment. "Because I had potential." Mzee Jabari shook his head. "No, you were saved because the world needed you. There is a purpose for every life. You were not meant to live only for yourself." Kofi's heart tightened. "What do you mean?" The old man continued. "You are a strong man now, but strength is not only for surviving, it is for lifting others. Your final test is to help someone who is weaker than you, even when it costs you something." Kofi was silent. Mzee Jabari stood up. "Come with me." They walked together to the edge of the city where the poor lived, those who struggled every day. Kofi had seen poverty before, but this time he saw it differently. He saw faces that were tired, children with empty eyes, mothers who carried sadness. Mzee Jabari stopped near a small hut and knocked. A woman opened the door. Her name was Naya, a widow who had lost her husband to illness. Her 2 children were hungry and she had no job. Her eyes were filled with worry. Mzee Jabari introduced Kofi. "This is Kofi Adeyemi. He is a good man." Nia looked at him with doubt. "Why are you here?" Kofi felt his heart beat faster. "I heard you need help," he said gently. "I want to help." Nia shook her head. "You are a businessman. You don't know my struggle." Kofi remembered his own past. He remembered being judged. He remembered feeling worthless. He knew the pain of being ignored. "I may not know your struggle," he said, "but I know what it feels like to be weak. And I know that the world is easier when someone stands with you." Nia hesitated, then invited him inside. Kofi sat with her and listened to her story. She explained how she had tried to find work, but no one would hire her. She had no money for school fees, and her children were falling behind. She was tired and hopeless. Kofi felt a strong desire to help, but he also knew that his business required hard work. Helping her would cost him time and money. He thought of the lessons from Mzee Jabari. He thought of the river. He thought of the boy who was saved. He looked at Nia and said, "I will help you. I will provide food and schooling for your children, and I will help you find work." Nia's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do that?" Kofi smiled. "Because I was once a boy who needed help, and someone helped me. Now it is my turn." Kofi returned to his shop and told his father and Amina about Nia. They agreed to support him. The next day, Kofi began helping Nia. He arranged for her children to attend school. He connected her with a job at a small bakery. He provided food for their home. It was not easy. He had to work harder. He had to sacrifice time with his own family. But he did not regret it. Weeks passed, and Nia's life began to improve. Her children smiled again. She regained hope. The neighborhood noticed. One day, the city council held a ceremony to honor Kofi for his leadership and honesty. They praised him for saving the city's water supply and for his contributions to the community. Kofi stood on the stage, but he felt humble. He looked at the crowd and spoke. "I did not do this for praise," he said. "I did it because I learned that confidence is not for ourselves alone. It is for others. If you have strength, use it to lift those who cannot lift themselves." The crowd cheered. After the ceremony, Kofi returned to the river. Mzee Jabari was waiting. "You have passed your final test," the old man said. Kofi bowed his head. "I understand now. Confidence is not just about being strong, it is about being responsible." Mzee Jabari smiled. "Yes, and now you must continue to live with that responsibility." Kofi looked at the river. He remembered the day he almost ended his life. He remembered the fear, the pain, and the shame. But now he saw the river as a symbol of life's endless flow. He realized that life was not meant to be wasted. It was meant to be lived with purpose. Kofi returned to his family, his business, and his community. He continued to grow, to help, and to inspire others. And though the world would always have challenges, Kofi had learned the most important lesson of all. Self-confidence is not born, it is built. Fear can be defeated, and a person who believes in themselves can change not only their life, but the lives of many. If you like this story, make sure you subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share with your friends and family so you don't miss the next powerful story coming your way. Drop a heart in comment, like and subscribe my channel, and visit my channel for more interesting story videos.